we are just having a short session tonight to sort of introduce the book and talk a little bit about Philip K. Dick. And for those who haven't attended these sessions before, you get a chance just to see what it's like, how this thing functions. So the idea is I grab quotes and things and, sometimes items external to the book itself, just to keep things interesting. And I put them together in a slideshow with images and we talk about them. And I want to encourage anybody who feels so inclined to, if you have a specific passage or quote that you'd like to discuss, then you can email me and I'll put it into the slideshow. I'll go ahead and put the slideshow up. All right. Okay. Those of you who don't know us, we're International Academic Center. We're an advising center here in Belgrade, Serbia. We do test prep and some other things, but this has been the most fun thing we do, the reading group. This is, I think, our 4th group at this point. And yeah, we are going to try to do them more often. Things got a little crazy and we had a bit of a lull. So we're coming back now. So our book for this session, oops, Ubik. Actually, it's Ubik. I've been living in Serbia for long enough that when I see the name of this book now, I say Ubik because that's what you would say in Serbian. But it's Ubik by Philip K. Dick. Considered a classic.
I've been pronouncing it all my life because I thought it was Ubik as in short for ubiquitous because it's everywhere.
It's Ubik is short for ubiquitous.
Oh, never mind.
Yes.
I've been pronouncing the word. Okay.
Spoiler alert, by the way, that is something we were going to talk about. Yes. So it's the same thing for the video game company, Ubisoft. It's Ubisoft. Every time I see it, I say Ubisoft because that's how you would say it in Serbian. But yes, it's Ubik. Philip K. Dick. What we're dealing with here is paranoid postmodern science fiction. Now, those of you who were with us for The Crying of Lot 49 or perhaps watched on YouTube, paranoia seems to be a running theme here. I want to contrast that with Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse Five, in which the protagonist is divinely non-paranoid to the point of not being surprised by anything, really, just being kind of on a rail, a passenger in his own life. But yeah, this could almost be categorized as horror. In fact, some people do categorize it as horror. And you'll see why. Well, we've got someone connecting.
It's Alex.
Mr. Alex. Oh, can you hear Alex? I see some typing going on. As long as you can hear. Dun, dun, dun. Mr. Alex. Do you hear us, Alex? You can.
Hi, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh.
Yes, now everything is okay.
Okay, great. So yeah, paranoid postmodern science fiction. Postmodern in the sense that it's just experimental literature. It's, you never sure what's really going on. Once again, that probably sounds familiar. Yeah, as I was saying, it's considered a classic. I think it was even called one of the top 100 English language books written by Time magazine. I don't know how much that means these days, but in 2009. So themes in the book: solipsism, privacy and spying. The thing about Philip K. Dick is he's one of those who really kind of saw some things in advance. Interestingly enough, the book takes place in 1992. So,
What does solipsism mean?
so yeah, let's talk about that. Solipsism is uncertainty about anything existing except for your own perceptions. Uh, I think probably the most or the best known example is the Cartesian "I think, therefore I am," as a kind of ground floor of saying, well, you know, the only thing I can't say is that I'm not thinking something or that I'm not seeing something. That's just kind of not possible in a way, sort of self-negating to say so. But at the very least, I can say that I exist, and that's all that I can know for sure. I mean, it can be used more loosely to imply just self-centeredness, but here it would be more about the just general uncertainty about the external world, about reality itself. Privacy and spying. In this particular story, a lot of that has to do with sort of corporate espionage, but there's much more to it than that. Very with the times, for sure. Exploitation, well, we'll get into that as the story proceeds, but yeah, people are being used, in some cases even consumed for the benefit of others. Consumerism and marketing. Each of the chapters begins with a sort of funny little advertisement for Ubik, which is a mystery. Well, we're going to have a lot to talk about in that regard. I don't want to give away too much. Perhaps we can't even say for sure what it is, although plenty of people have given pretty good explanations of what it might be. Tenuous nature of reality, I guess that links back to solipsism. Entropy, for those not familiar with the term, entropy is the tendency of things to fall apart, for things to go from ordered to chaotic, to disintegrate, and to reach a final equilibrium with everything else. Dissipation. Technology, of course. This is a science fiction book with some wild technology, as you'll see. Duality, you will see there's a theme of actions and reactions, opposing forces, opposing and equal question mark forces. And paranoia. Well, yeah, along with the solipsism and the tenuous nature of reality, I think it's a given. Philip K. Dick, we're going to have a lot to talk about with Philip K. Dick himself, who is such an interesting figure, who really lived a life that could be one of his stories. He had a lot of troubles. He was, well, he had some problems. He had health problems and he had drug problems, and he had some sort of mystical experience that punctured his whole reality. And some of his stories are, from his perspective, not fiction at all. Very interesting figure. Born in Chicago.
Was it an LSD-related mystical experience, or was it just a mystical experience?
That his initial experience, I think, more had to do with, okay, he was constantly doing, and it was legal at the time. He was constantly doing like methamphetamine pills
Oh.
and staying up for a long time to keep writing. I think it was a combination of things. He was taking pain medication and just all kinds of stuff, just a whole menu. But we are going to talk about some of his mystical experiences because they're pretty wild, as you might imagine. So yeah, born in Chicago, moved to California at a young age, and was, around for a lot of the countercultural goings on in Berkeley. And was involved with anti-war movement, and then he was spied on by the government. He became a very paranoid person. Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, along with all of his other troubles, being surveilled is not helpful. Contributed greatly to his whole experience. I consider him one of the apostles of high weirdness, along with other luminaries like Robert Anton Wilson and who else? Maybe Terence McKenna. I don't know. He's had quite an influence on culture. Many people don't realize that, you know, some of the bigger, let's say, more well-known science fiction films of the last few decades were based on Philip K. Dick's stories, including Blade Runner, considered a science fiction classic as well, Total Recall, and Minority Report. Not as good as the others, admittedly, in my opinion. A bit too, I don't know, heavy on the CGI. I can't figure out what's quite wrong with it. It's okay. These are not all of his. There was a series that was put together that was called something like Electric Dreams. It's pretty good. It's adaptations of some of his short stories. One of them with Steve Buscemi, and it's so great.
There's
Sorry?
the TV show Man in the High Castle, which I haven't seen.
Yes, that is also another one. Netflix, I think, is running it now. The Man in the High Castle, alternative history in which the Allied forces do not win World War II. And the US West Coast is a sort of Japanese protectorate, and the East Coast is Nazified. It's pretty wild. It's good, actually. I watched the first season, but I just kind of trailed off after that. I have to get back into it.
I heard they didn't finish it.
They did or didn't?
Wife did not. My friend's wife never read the book and got all into it. And she was so angry that they decided to not renew the series. She was bugging my friend, look, I gotta read the book.
Oh man, that's disappointing. I hate when that happens. Well, I guess it's, well, you know, that has happened with some other series these days where it gets canceled and then someone else picks it up. When I was puttering around on the internet today, I did notice it as a Netflix show, and I didn't remember that it was a Netflix show. So maybe I should have clicked. Maybe they've picked it back up. Who knows? I thought it was originally a Sci-Fi Channel show, but I might be wrong. We'll have to look into that. I'm trying to remember if it was at the end of The Crying of Lot 49, but I included a clip from the Richard Linklater film Waking Life, in which the director talks about Philip K. Dick. When I put it on YouTube, it got copy struck, so we had to edit the film, so it doesn't contain the clip. There's a really great scene, and we might even put it into one of the presentations again and then edit it out for YouTube, in which Richard Linklater, in the final scene of the film, by the way, the film is shot in rotoscope. Do you guys know what I mean by that? It's a style of film in which animation is drawn over film. So it looks sort of realistic in a way, the way that, you know, people's sort of micro expressions get picked up nicely, so it almost looks real, but the artist has the freedom to depart from the film and exaggerate things, so people's eyes can suddenly get really big and things like that. It's very great like that. It drifts in and out of being sort of realistic and then completely Alice in Wonderland-ish. People start flying. The plot is a boy is trapped in his dream, and he's trying to figure out how to wake up, and he just has conversations with people. And it's great because the conversations are not scripted. They're actual just conversations that people are having. And yeah, the last one is, well, we'll get into it. It's a part of Philip K. Dick's mystical experience, his series of experiences.
There was a Scanner Darkly with
Yeah,
Keanu
that
Reeves that was filmed in an interesting way. It wasn't that kind of animation, but it was
no, it
another
is.
kind of
It
animation.
in
And that's
not a,
rotoscope.
that's a new, okay. It is
That
rotoscope.
was good.
It's rotoscope, but it's a new type that was developed in the last couple of decades. It's called Rotoshop, and it's an animation platform that was developed by a programmer, and it does the same thing as rotoscope, but some other things. It's a kind of updated version of rotoscope. Like
It
originally,
lent itself to the story very well, though I don't know how it could have been filmed more effectively except by using that.
that's the thing.
That was a
You know,
good story.
yeah. I mean, there have been several attempts to do Ubik, and most recently was Michael Gondry, who did Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and he gave up on it. He read the script after they had, teamed up and gotten it on paper, and he was like, "Oh, this is disappointing. We can't do this." And I think it's, trying to do a live action version of something with when you're always dealing with the tenuous nature of reality. Yeah, rotoscope is great for that. Some of the original rotoscope movies, they were originally done by hand, like drawn by hand. And there's an old animated version of The Hobbit, Tolkien's The Hobbit, that's in rotoscope from the 1970s. It's very good. It's very interesting, just even to see rotoscope in action, because you don't have to worry about sort of like the special effects for the monsters. You just draw the special effects. So you have realistic looking people and realistic looking creatures and things like that. But yes, A Scanner Darkly was also directed by the same director, William Linklater. He did the Waking Life. I highly recommend Waking Life if you haven't seen it. It's very, I don't know, trippy and philosophical. It's a great one. And I think like that last scene really ties it all together for me. That's what it's my favorite part of the movie. So yeah, what is Ubik? Well, that will be a topic of discussion over the coming weeks. It is a product. It has miraculous characteristics. As I said at the beginning, it's advertised at the beginning of each chapter. Oh yeah, let's talk about this, ubiquity. You might recognize that root, ubic, from ubiquitous or ubiquity, omnipresence, being everywhere. Originally a Lutheran theological position, so before it came into sort of common everyday use, not that people use that word all the time, but it's not ubiquitous. It referred specifically to a sort of pantheistic Christianity that said that Christ was everywhere. But yes, as far as what it is in the book, well, we can look at some of these advertising blurbs from the beginnings of the chapters here. And they're done in this, comical style. Could it be that I have bad breath, Tom? Well, Ed, if you're worried about that, try today's new Ubik with powerful germicidal foaming action, guaranteed safe when taken as directed. It's funny that most of them contain a bit of warning about using the Ubik. I mean, some sort of mouthwash, but with a warning, safe when taken as directed. Then we wanted to give you a shave like no other you ever had. We said, it's about time a man's face got a little loving. We said, with Ubik's self-winding Swiss chromium never-ending blade, the days of scrape are over. So try Ubik and be loved. Warning, use only as directed and with caution. Instant Ubik has all the fresh flavor of just brewed drip coffee. Your husband will say, Christ, Sally, I used to think your coffee was only so-so, but wow. But now, wow. Safe. So the coffee also has a warning, which is pretty funny just by itself. Not all of them contain warnings. It's funny. it really reminds me, I mean, okay, so consumerism is clearly being lampooned here, you know, a sort of just something about commercials that's always patronizing. Um, I'm sure you guys know exactly what I mean. It's funny to me that some people take commercials really, I don't know, seriously. It always feels like you're being talked down to or treated like a child. Um, when I was really little, my older brother did this thing, and it really affected me for my whole life. When a commercial would come on with this voice of urgency saying, you know, get out of your chair, go down to the store, blah, blah, blah. My brother would react jokingly, but in earnest, like, oh my God, holy, and like start packing suitcases and just like, and I still do that now. Like anytime this urgent commercial comes on the screen, I'll freak everybody out by just immediately acting as if it's serious. It's the real deal. Like we have to get down to the store right now. This is an emergency. um, but yeah, the just sort of condescension of advertising has always been really bizarre to me. And I know that these days, you know, it's more like commercials are trying to always, you know, be subversive in a way, you know, and be like, oh, we're cool. We know about memes. Like they had a whole series of commercials with the meme family. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Anyway, it's commercials trying to be cool and subversive, but it's always just an adaptation and it's never cool and subversive. It can't be. uh, do you guys ever see the Doors movie? No. Jim Morrison, it's played by Val Kilmer at some point in his late kind of chubby bearded days, suddenly like pops out of a haze for a second and looks at the television, and Light My Fire is playing, but it's in this sort of elevator music style. It's in a commercial for a car, and he's just disgusted with himself and everything. So we have some key terms. For those of you who may not be into science fiction, I would encourage you to stick with this book. It's not just a space opera. You know, there's a fair distinction between science fiction works that are just sort of like an action movie with lasers, and science fiction works that are speculative and philosophical like this. And I know that some people might start reading the book and be like, whoa, what is all this stuff? So I just threw down a few terms so you don't get too put off at the beginning, because they immediately go into these sort of jargon terms. Okay, so they refer to people being in half-life. So in the story, you don't get to be dead immediately. You go into half-life where people can still interact with you. It's like right from the start. Yeah?
There's just one typo. I think it's supposed to
Oh.
be employed for the purposes of espionage. I'm not nitpicking, but so
Thank
people
you.
can.
That's right. That is a typo.
But anyways, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So yeah, right from the beginning, one of the characters starts talking about how he has to discuss something with his wife who is also dead. So you might be like, what's going on here? There are references to telepaths, but they're also called psis and teeps. Teep is, just imagine TP, right? The letters, teeps. Yeah, individuals with psychic abilities employed for the purposes of espionage, yes. A lot of this centers around these sort of warring companies. Inertials are sort of the defense. Remember we talked about these dualities, right? These opposing forces. You have telepaths and their opposing force are the inertials who can counter the efforts of the telepaths. And there are also precogs, which you may remember from Minority Report. They can see the future. The other stuff should be pretty straightforward, I hope. But yeah, also as these sessions go forward, we're going to, I got a copy of Robert Crumb's illustrations of Philip K. Dick's religious experience. So we'll be using some of the art from there to talk about it. Robert Crumb is a famous illustrator. He did comic strips and he drew posters for a lot of rock bands in the 1960s and 70s. You might recognize his Keep on Truckin' character for the Grateful Dead. A bunch of stuff like that. He drew the Terrapin Station cover for the Grateful Dead. Bunch of things. Anyway, yeah, his stuff is always interesting. This is the first panel from the story. Philip was a writer of science fiction. In 1982, he died suddenly of a stroke. His books often dealt with the illusory quality of reality. In March 74, Dick saw what he later described as a vision of the apocalypse and spent the rest of his life trying to understand what he'd experienced. I should say the short rest of his life. He died rather early. Well, yeah, it says right there, 1982. Was it the onset of acute schizophrenia, or was it genuine mystical revelation? And then again, is there a difference? Good question. Couple of other panels from the story. He feels as if his intelligence is subsumed by a sort of meta-rational intelligence that takes over all of his functions. His whole, even his interactions with people, he feels like they're happening sort of on autopilot, where he's, he knows how to do all kinds of things. Yeah, the intelligence has all kinds of tremendous technical knowledge and memories going back many years. He sees a living flame. In fact, one of his other stories, Valis, is one of those that's nonfiction for him, is about this living light intelligence that sort of penetrates his whole being. Lots to talk about there. Great stuff. But yeah, the initial reading. So for the next session, read at least chapters 1 to 3. You can read the whole book, of course, if you want to. Feel free to, but the first session 1, this is session 0, will be discussion of chapters 1 to 3. We try to avoid spoilers, although for some books it's occasionally not possible, just depending on what happens. In general, we try to avoid spoilers for people who have not gotten to the end yet. So yeah, that's it for now. Do you guys have any questions or comments you'd like to make?
So once again, how do you pronounce the name of the book? It was
Ubik.
Ubik?
Yeah.
Ubik. Okay,
Yeah, just
okay.
think like united. That, yeah, it has that yeah at the beginning. So okay. I hope you guys will all join us next Sunday, same time. The session will be longer next time. Usually they last about an hour to an hour and a half. It just kind of depends on what we get into discussion-wise. So yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't really officially introduce myself to everybody in case someone's here who hasn't met me already. I'm Jason Ryan. I'm one of the teachers at International Academic Center. Excuse me. And I look forward to these sessions over the next 6 weeks. And I'm not sure if anybody joined after I said this, so I'll say it one more time. If there's a portion of the book in particular you would like to discuss, feel free to email me at the address that I used this evening or this morning for you guys with the pages, or you can just, paste the lines into the email and we'll put them up to discuss. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, it was nice meeting you, and I look forward to next week.
It was nice meeting everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Bye to everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.